The only reason I'm here today to even give this speech is because of the man I'm about to discuss. My parents met because of him, and many others have as well. Some call him Pratt, some call him the professor, but to most, he is Neil Peart. Most of you have probably never heard his name at all. And if you're thinking, if he's so successful and so inspirational, how have I never heard of him? And that's fair, but let me ask you, how many of you ever felt like you don't belong? How many of you have felt like you just can't go on and felt a sense of hopelessness? That's Neil Peart in a nutshell. And if you ever listen to any of his lyrics, I guarantee you'll be able to find something to relate to on so many levels. And with that in mind, here's what I'll be discussing. First, the death of his wife and daughter. Second, how his music changed from pre-tragedy to post-tragedy. And then third, his own death last year. In 1997, times were dark for Peart and his band Rush as it was. Their most recent album, Test for Echo, was failing, and the last thing that Peart and the band needed was more stress. Unfortunately, that is exactly what he received. In 1997, as Nicole Rosenthal states in a Grunge article from 2020, the tragic death of Neil Peart's daughter, Selena Peart Taylor, died after being involved in a single car accident. Peart and his wife Jacqueline were understandably devastated by the news, but it was Peart who took it the hardest. Things didn't end here for Neil, however. It was 10 months later, Jacqueline was on her last legs, but on June 10th, 1998, Jacqueline would succumb to cancer. And at this point, Neil would start to consider suicide. And understandably, Neil had little interest in music after the tragedy, but they did find the will to create music again. But these new albums that they produced were understandably darker than the ones like in years past. If we take a song like How It Is from post-tragic music, you can find lyrics like, such a cloudy day, seems we'll never see the sun. And that's a lyric that exemplifies all the dark and tragic events that happen in his life. He's saying that he just doesn't see the hope in things anymore. And then we compare that to an earlier Rush epic like 2112. I can't wait to share this new wonder. These lyrics are hopeful. They have joy in them. In 2012, the band would release their final album, Clockwork Angels, and this album was a little bit lighter than Vapor Trail. Vapor Trail is the one that followed Neil's tragedy. It had that lighter tone. It had lyrics like, well, I can't wait to share this new wonder. He repeated the same lyrics as 2112. And speaking of 2012, let's move on to Neil's final years. He had been pretty private between the years of his retirement and his death. So we didn't know what his condition was. He had a condition called the glioblastoma. It's an aggressive form of brain cancer. And he passed away on January 10th of 2020. And it was a pretty big shock. People like Justin Trudeau, people like Styx, Imagine Dragons, they all came out to honor Neil. And in my own house, brought us to tears, and we wouldn't recover it for weeks. And with all that in mind, the tragedy and the success that Neil had in his career, let's go over the main points of his life. His wife and daughter would die tragically, and that would noticeably affect the music on their next few albums. And he would pass away in 2020, but he would leave behind a legacy of success and inspiration and tragedy. And I implore you to listen to his music and continue his legacy and feel his emotion. Thank you.